Hey, let us begin the program.
For Thursday, October 28th, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to a very special podcast this week. Special not just because we are doing a duo cast. It's Jeremy Williams here.
That's why it's special.
That is why it's special, isn't it? You know, it recalls the time, Jeremy. Do you remember, like, maybe it was 4-5 years ago, where we drove down to San Jose on a day not unlike today, where we went to some type of event, what would have been called Oculus Connect. Sat through a keynote, did a bunch of interviews, and then drove back to San Francisco and recorded a podcast in person, just you and me, in your living room. I think we did one time right after a Connect.
I believe Michael Abrash calls that the good old days.
The good old. I thought we're still in the good old days. The good old days are still good, hopefully, but we're the ones getting older, and I guess the days are the days as they are these days. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm exhausted. I don't know about you. It's so much going on this past week in our world and in the world, of course, everything going on around us. We will be talking about the news and announcements out of Facebook Connect. The keynote just happened merely less than an hour ago as we're recording this. So still kind of processing and digesting, but we will absolutely cover that. But doing a little bit of travel. I was in LA on Tuesday, quick day trip, filming some stuff Ghostbusters related that hopefully you'll be able to see in the next month as the movie comes out. Did a bunch of hardware reviews that last week. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I reviewed a new VR headset from Vario. I'm going to talk about,
you got your son
Dune.
Dressed in a Halloween costume.
Oh my God. That's Halloween coming up. So I know Kishore last week put out a request for people to share their Halloween plans. And really, I just needed to hear other parents' experiences getting their kids in the costume. I don't know how it's been for you. If your kids like Halloween or not.
The 14-year-old may be over it. He's considering buying a bag of candy and staying home and playing video games.
Wow.
Life hack. The 11-year-old can't wait for it. I think she'll be dressing up until she's my age. She's prepared to be Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter series.
Fantastic. That's great. Was there ever a point where the kids didn't want to put on costumes? Resisted early on for any reason?
Okay, I know why you're asking, and no, happily, I can say that my kids have a costume box, and we're happy to dive into it anytime.
We've been trying to get our kid, 2.5-year-old, or 250-week-old, almost very close to 3-year-old's birthday. He was supposed to be born on Halloween, Jeremy. Let me just tell you this. The due date was Halloween. He resisted Halloween so much that he delayed his own birth to be born a week after Halloween. And, you know, he's at the age now where he's strong and strong-willed and refuses to put on a costume. And it's not that he doesn't like Batman. He loves Batman. He loves Ghostbusters. Loves all the things in the pop culture things, things that he may see on a screen from time to time. But he does not want to put on a costume.
I have no problem
can't
with
figure
that.
it out.
Not everybody is a cosplayer, Norm. You got to let your child be himself.
Yeah, I guess so. But we figured it out. But we thought it was just a kind of like rebellious streak. We wanted him to do something, so he didn't want to do it.
You thought he was rebelling, against you. Yeah,
exactly. Right. We want. Okay, will you put on the costume? We'll have you cookies and candy and all the good stuff. No, just every kid goes through the no phase, right? Like that's their favorite word. Right.
Is that only a phase? Okay.
Exactly. Right. Well, they begin it. Right. And
must be a long one.
Yeah. But we got over a hurdle last night, literally, where we really, really got him to put the costume on through, mental coercion tricks, Jedi mind tricks of the parental kind. And what I've come to realize, I think his resistance was less so much about a rebellion, but more so much he thought he thought when he put on the costume he would actually have to face real villains.
Wow.
Like a character. Like he was
Okay.
scared of the costume. You know, it's one thing to watch Batman on an iPad or on TV fight the Joker when it's not you, but if you put on the costume, I think he thought that meant we were going to have to send him out to fight the Joker
Wow.
or
Yeah.
fight some ghosts
It's
as
one
a
thing to
Ghostbuster.
try to remember what it was like to be 12 and like be afraid of the world. Well, I'm still
Yeah.
afraid of the world at age nearly 48, but I we can't remember what it was like to be 3. And
No.
I would totally believe you're right. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it came over. It was like there was a physical repulsion, and it became less so much resistance as just fear. Like the cost, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. We got over it. We think Halloween. I mean, as we record this, Halloween is still 2 days or 3 days away. So who knows? But we're hoping to get a good Halloween photo. That's the Halloween report from the Chan household. It's why it's been a long week. But let's kick things off with some pop culture because Dune was the big movie that came out. You know, a lot of questions whether it could be successful at either the box office or among audiences who may not have been familiar with the source material, the book, or the David Lynch film or the TV series. And it was a big gamble from Warner Brothers and Legendary to put this film out and delay it in a simultaneous HBO Max release, and also very clearly call it a Part One. The title is Dune Part One. Now, you by now may have heard out there that they've greenlit a Dune Part Two. They've announced that coming October
Yes.
2023. 2 short years. They're going to film it next year and get it out the year after. So it's a relatively fast turnaround in Hollywood time.
Well, they had
Um,
planned initially to shoot both simultaneously, right?
oh, I didn't realize
Much
that.
much like Back to the Future 2 and 3. But
Ah,
I think the budget sort of got out of scope and
yeah.
they decided that that's too much. And Denis Villeneuve, the director, said, "Thank God that's what we did," because he was exhausted from shooting in the desert for this one film. To do
Right.
two would have been too much to undertake.
I also like the fact that we're not going to get into spoilers about the book, the movie, or whatever. But you know, it is the second half is uh, there are changes, and I would like to see the director have be able to process the post production process, the reception, and let the creative ideas percolate for a little more, so they weren't felt bound to having to film it as a 5 hour epic and be able to innovate on things and do things they wanted to do and couldn't do in the first film. So I'm really actually glad that they're allowing this. They're that one, it's greenlit, the part two, but then they're also they can come back to it kind of reinvigorated. What did you think about the film?
Oh, 100%. I loved it. I think you set me up for it well, which is to say it was a good film. You didn't seem to think like it was like the most energetic and I don't know, bombastic thing you'd ever seen, but it was a tasteful film, and it was a very good film, and so that was exactly what I was hoping for, and is what I got. I was amazed by the scope of some of the effects and the world building. What I thought was just fantastic. I was also impressed that it was a PG-13 because they walked that line extremely well. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure why they wanted it to be PG-13. Other than I assume to increase the number of people who could possibly see it and pay to see it, which is great because I hope everybody gets to see this movie. It's a rare thing these days to get sci-fi that really takes itself seriously, which is what
yeah.
I grew up with. I grew up with Star Wars and Flash Gordon and movies that maybe you know looking back on, they're campy now and they shouldn't have taken themselves so seriously, but they did. And when you watch a film like that, if you open yourself up to it, you take it seriously yourself. And that's what this does, as well as his previous films, Blade Runner and Arrival. I love that he's making these kind of movies, and I mean, it's gonna be a long wait. It's gonna be 2 years, but I'm in. I can't wait for the sequel.
I think there's a difference also between a film that takes itself seriously or maybe even too seriously and a film and slash production team and director that takes its audience seriously.
Hmm.
And I think it does the latter and a little bit of the former. Dune is divisive to say the least, right? Because it was written in the '60s. The source material, as groundbreaking as it was, and epic in scope and the world building that it does, has it's kind of like an book in kind of modern science fiction. A lot of the ideas of Dune percolate in and found themselves in Star Wars, in other modern science fiction tales, and So while it is very much a Joseph Campbell hero's journey of a young white male savior figure, my fear was that they wouldn't be able to update that in a way to still resonate with modern audiences who may not have read Dune, who may watch this and like, hey, isn't this a story we've seen before? Because they have to satisfy both people who love and revere Dune, the book, as well as people who just like Timothée Chalamet or Zendaya,
Right.
or all the other actors, the big names that they brought on this film. You're right, epic in scope. We talked a little bit about the formatting of the film. We did a little bit of research. Turns out about an hour of it was shot for the aspect ratio of IMAX, and so there are multiple versions that you can see in theaters if you want to see in theaters, from a standard widescreen to a Dolby formatted one to a standard IMAX/Limax theater to a laser IMAX, which has the tallest aspect ratio. And I can't imagine what some of those sandworm scenes look like in that. Probably won't be able to see it in the laser IMAX this go around, but hoping for a re-release come 2023.
When you showed me all the different aspect ratios you can see this film in, I sympathized for the director, photographer, and the editor, because like, which one do you choose? I thought the directors and DPs preferred a single format, and that was the one that they shot for, and that they wanted everybody at home to be able to see. And of course, they fought for letterboxing instead of cropped pan and scan in the VHS days, so that we could do that. And what do you think is the preferred format for Dune? Is it IMAX, and are we sacrificing something watching it at home on a 77-inch widescreen TV?
I think yes. I think yes, and also I think the fact that with streaming, the fact that they still released a letterbox version for streaming and didn't do what Christopher Nolan has done in the past with like The Dark Knight, IMAX scenes expanded, and same with Mission Impossible. There's scenes that slowly convert and then turn from letterbox to at least 16:9. I was hoping for that hour of footage to be at least 16:9 and do a graceful transition, but what we got is full letterbox mode for the home, and the Blu-ray will have the multiple versions. We'll have a version that has so I think that a French listing of the Blu-ray site listed multiple aspect ratios, which I don't know if they pulled that from IMDb or if they got that from the studio, but that will be the one to get for home viewing, to get at least a larger, a taller aspect ratio for some of those big epic scenes.
Good to know. I was just grateful for the audio. The audio, like his previous films, particularly Blade Runner 2049, absolute demo of Dolby Atmos. It's just top to bottom. The Hans, I mean, it's just amazing. If you have the ability to watch this with high quality audio, you're in for a treat. And if it needs to be headphones, maybe make it headphones. Like, it's just like, it's really, really good.
The space bagpipes and the lamentation songs, those were echoed in the Dolby cinema room. So Dune, yes, very pleased. It did very well at box office. All of the box office prognosticators and watchers are very happy with its 40 million debut and how it's even performed in the week. How people watch the numbers and the percentage drops, and between Monday and Tuesday after, it becomes a hobby, an obsession for some. But all signs point to a successful outing for Dune, and it will get a China release too. So it may do better than Eternals or Shang-Chi, because those Marvel films did not get a China release. Moving on to some quick other pop culture news. We saw a trailer for Pixar's Lightyear.
Yeah,
this is
teaser.
This is interesting. The first footage though, right? They announced it at, I think, D23. Now it's Chris Evans as not Buzz Lightyear, but as he describes it, as the hero that inspired the toy. Which, when they announced that, it made me think there was a Neil Armstrong-like astronaut or some type of, a real-world space figure in the world of Toy Story that then they made a toy out of.
I wonder. So is this going to be like a cartoon that the toy is the G.I. Joe action figure for?
That's what it seems like, because the movie doesn't look like it is set in a modern era. It's set clearly in the sci-fi world or the future, right?
It looks amazing. Oh my god!
It's like Wall-E levels of science fiction.
Yeah,
that Pixar is doing. Very much reminiscent of, like, even remember Ad Astra, the Brad Pitt movie. like that
Yeah.
level of the world, right? Like, space stations on other
Yeah.
planets, and literally it's Space Command. It's a guy who works for Space Command, less cartoony from a character design standpoint. He still has a big chin, big dimpled chin, like Buzz Lightyear does. And obviously, the voice is not Tim Allen; it's Chris Evans.
So I thought it was a different voice because he was younger, and I was ramping
Ah,
myself up for trying to get on board with this because it's hard. Like, obviously, maybe Tim Allen doesn't even want to do Buzz Lightyear anymore. For all I know, he's been doing it for how long now? Like almost 25 years.
that's right.
Um, yeah, in fact, 25 years, which is crazy. Um, So that's what I was expecting, but I'm liking the direction you're explaining. I'm more on board with that. And honestly, though, like they had me at the Bowie soundtrack, and I don't know if that's going to be a part of the film or not, or if it was just a hook for the trailer. But it's almost unfair to use a song like that because I'm in, and it's going to hook me. And the visuals look spectacular. And this is a great teaser. I don't need a full trailer. In fact, I don't want to see one. I just want to go see the movie next. It's a
Yeah,
long wait, right? Is it like is it mid 2022?
it's middle next year. The bigger news
That's
is,
not too bad.
yeah, it's not that bad. Next summer we're gonna get obviously more footage, but the Pixar's films during the lockdown were slated for day and date release, really for Disney Plus. And our fear as fans of Pixar would be that the studio would kind of got downgraded almost and do the equivalent of direct to DVD, but for streaming era, and not get the full theatrical experience, which is what those animators and those directors at Pixar want to make the films for. But the next films, I believe, the big red panda one, being red, turning red,
Yeah.
or something. That and Lightyear are both getting theatrical exclusive releases, which I think is the right thing. Um, what was it? Life on Mars was the song that you used. What was it from the trailer?
Is it Starman?
Starman. Yeah. It's the same song that they had on that when they sent the Tesla, right? When they played that
Right.
over the speakers when they sent the Tesla to Mars, or in space on one of those Dragon rockets.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this film fits canonically in the Toy Story universe. It's not like Andy and his mom live in a world where there's Space Command.
What was
But
the
if
beginning of it? Is it not Star Command? Is it Space
Star
Command?
Command, I
You
don't.
keep saying Space Command, and that
Is
doesn't
it Star
ring
Command?
right. As we said, it's been
Star Command. You're
25
right. Yeah, Star.
years.
Yes, it is Star Command. You're right. You're right. Star. I apologize. Star Command. It's
Um,
Star Command.
you remember the beginning of Toy Story 2?
Yeah,
It's this. It's like it's Buzz Lightyear landing on an alien planet, and he looks around, and there's all of the aliens. And are they playing a video game? Because this
they
is
are.
okay.
It's Rex, right? It's Rex playing Buzz
Right.
Lightyear's video game, and he
Right.
loses. So in the world of Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear is a character, and there are video games based on him. And I believe this must be the kind of movie that they would watch. The Pixar of Andy's world would make this movie, and
Yeah.
so we get to be the Andys,
Yeah.
when watching that Buzz Lightyear movie, so that our kids will buy the Buzz Lightyear toys.
I love it. I love it. And I wonder if we'll see a cameo from anyone else from Toy Story.
No, that wouldn't make sense.
I would guess not, but it would be fun. So I have no idea.
Yeah. It's Angus MacLane. He did a bunch of the Toy Story shorts, or the Toys That Time Forgot, or whatever. He also did Finding Dory. That's the one he co-directed. So actually a friend of Tested. So we're very excited
Who's
for
not?
this film. Yeah. Who's not a friend of Tested? Everyone's a friend of Tested. You out there, listeners, friends of Tested. The other trailer I wanted to shout out was Cowboy Bebop. Netflix's Cowboy Bebop live action series.
The
did you get a
only
chance to
thing
watch
I know
this?
the only thing I know about Cowboy Bebop is it has a killer down tempo soundtrack. Like honestly, I was handed the soundtrack in the like early aughts, and I was like, "This is great," but I never once watched it. But I get it; it's good, right?
Yeah, and it's stylized, right? It has a little bit of Firefly in its DNA, the world that it lives in, but the animation has a certain look to it, and the live action. A lot of people are calling it akin to Scott Pilgrim, in terms of
Okay.
how flashy and how in sync with the music and how bright the colors are. I'd be curious if you watch this Netflix show without any awareness of the animation, what your thoughts would be. So it's coming out very soon. Cowboy Bebop fans, I think, are very happy with what they saw so far. All right, moving on. A few bits of tech I want to go over. One, there's a video on Tested right now where we shot about a month ago, where I got to visit Google Wing or Project Wing. I guess it's, what company is just called Wing now. But do you know about this
Nope.
drone delivery service? Okay, so let me set this up because a lot of questions. This wasn't a sponsored thing. We've been following this for a long time. Even at Maker Fairs, we go to Maker Fairs, and Google, back when this was part of their Google X, a moonshots project. It was the idea of, could they make a business out of drone delivery? And we've seen drone delivery like spoofed all over, and Amazon has drones that we've talked about that deploy from vans, and there's Domino's and all these kind of companies kind of jumped on the bandwagon of this pop culture meme of drone delivery. Google has the money to take it very seriously, and with Wing, they actually have drones out in the field right now. And so Adam Woodworth, who's the CTO of Wing and someone we've met before at Maker Fairs, his videos have gone super viral. You might have seen like his RC drones of Death Stars and Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters, and he's turned toys into like fully controllable drones. His whole passion is aviation, and the team there have designed a VTOL drone, vertical takeoff, then goes fixed wing gliding to do a 10-kilometer radius drone delivery, which they service, which they partner with FedEx and other merchants to deploy in Australia and testing in places like West Virginia, I believe. So one, it is a technology that it works. They have a back end that's an air traffic management controller where people can use an app and place an order, and they are delivering coffee, Tylenol, rotisserie chicken, small, 1-2 kilogram things in a package that the drone deploys from a charging pad, and a operator and puts a little package on a little string, and then it goes up and then flies to your destination and lands it like in your driveway. And then you have a package with your
Coffee.
rotisserie chicken, with your coffee, literally your coffee, 10 or 15 minutes later. The idea is like less than same hour delivery.
And the
There's one
idea
of,
is you will eventually, I suppose, be able to save money by using a service like this
yeah,
versus an Uber Eats.
exactly. Like they're thinking, like, when we heard of drone delivery, we thought it made a lot of sense for people who live in remote places,
Hmm.
farmers, off the beaten path, where it might be expensive, very expensive for an Uber to get out there, or even a delivery truck, an Amazon truck. If you get your kind of essentials, cost wise, this feels like Google, the Alphabet, right, the big mega corporation, funding this and subsidizing the cost of the R&D, the cost of the implementation, and just trying to get merchants on board because they feel like they want to be in the space, literally this airspace first. And it's a time where the FAA and the regulatory agencies don't have, they're just still trying to figure this out, just like with the hobbyist drone community, right? So they want to be the forefront so that not only can they show that they have proven technology, but they can go to FAA and say, let's work together so we can define the terms of what commercial drones look like. And that feels like the business reason for doing this. What's interesting is a lot of hobby RC enthusiasts are saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now that drones are becoming more commercial and the government's going to take it more seriously, they're going to put more restrictions on my hobby, on the wild west of hobby RC. And so it's a real concern for the hobbyists to see to keep an eye on this, because they don't have any say, right? They've been kind of just very reactive to government regulation. From a technology standpoint, what they've made is really incredible. And that's what the focus of our video is mostly about, how they iterated to get to this VTOL design. It's still a drone. You're talking about, 12 rotors on this, really 8 that they need to operate.
It sounds like a drone that sort of transforms into an airplane.
Yeah, so it goes from one mode with like a VTOL, right? So a vertical takeoff, so you have the standard, all your axis of control from attitude and altitude and pitch yaw, whatever, through rotors. And then once it gets to altitude, those don't are necessary, and it goes to fixed wing and kind of glides.
Oh, I
And it,
figured they rotated 90 degrees to
no, they
become
had one
thrusters.
design where it actually like it was like it looked like a bat wing, and
Yeah.
then it like a stealth bomber. It went up and then tilted, and then flew. This one, the rotors are one way, but it's designed in a way so it can just stay in its orientation and just glide and then drag this cord, which has a package that has your rotisserie chicken, which is the example. They literally call it like the rotisserie chicken is one of their examples because it needs to arrive hot and it has a certain weight into
Yep.
it, and it's the size of that package. And then you kind of recycle the package, design this recyclable package that folds up, a little origami. Um, and I got to demo and see what it was like to order from an app and have the drone drop it off. And they want this to be a place where it can drop on the driveway or your backyard, or literally not like a designated drone pickup spot. It literally goes to your address. Uh, there are some people who have used this in Australia and said it was very useful during the lockdown, getting your
Hmm.
snacks for your kids. And it's cheaper, or at least more convenient than going to a grocery store. And obviously the costs are being subsidized right now for the delivery. But you're going to hear the sounds, right? Your neighbors are going to hear the sounds of the drone hovering. Like it may not be using those rotors the entire way, but when it's in that drop off mode, it's hovering above your head and you're going to hear like the buzzing of a drone rotor.
Yeah.
And they've modified the design to be as quiet as they can make it,
How
but it
high
still
is it
sounds like
when it's dropping off? How do you know?
I didn't get the exact measurement, but we're talking about like I couldn't jump and grab it. It was like tens, like I would say maybe 50 feet or so
Okay.
in the air, and then the rope deploys. And there's there's a chute, or there's a grabbing little mechanism, like a attachment that you can pick off, and it knows that you've taken the package, and then it retracts the little hook,
Yeah.
and it flies away. Yeah,
It won't. So that'll reduce the volume somewhat because it won't be right above your head. It'll be 50 feet or
right,
whatever in the
right.
air. And it's really smart that they do that also just for safety standpoint. I mean, for the device and for people who are trying to test the limits of physics and trying to maybe the kids trying to hit it with a broomstick or something.
You're going to have that, right? People are going to be throwing things at this. They're going to be, and they want to normalize it, right? They want to normalize it so like people are not going to be doing it eventually, and they think their strong belief is that the wow factor of the convenience of it will be so normalized that people won't think of it as a novel thing.
Yeah, it's
That's going to
like
be the big hurdle.
Wade Watts receiving his Pizza Hut in the beginning of Ready Player One or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's just going to
yeah.
happen.
And change is happening. It's like they're going to get and it's up to the kind of the marketplace to determine whether they want this or not, right? If the community, the neighborhoods, of city councils decide, we don't want this noise pollution, or let's restrict the airspace so they can only land in certain places. Maybe that's where the market will go. Right now, that's an unsolved thing. But the interesting thing is that on paper it sounds like science fiction, but the tech is here. It's working reliably, and from their standpoint, safely, as long as people aren't throwing rocks at these things. And that was the amazing thing, from a thing that we saw at Maker Faire 5 years ago to something that people are actually in a lockdown receiving their cannolis and their desserts and their rotisserie chickens or whatever in Australia. That feels like science fiction.
Feels like a worthy area of exploration. I'm glad they're doing it. It makes a lot more sense to me than the robots that are wandering around the mission, or there were a couple
Right,
years
right.
ago on
Right,
foot.
right. I mean, it's the same idea, right? Like these companies are all putting a ton of money investing on these, like what feels like science fiction and ways that feel completely not normal to the way we've been doing things, because they want to normalize it, because you're never going to know what the real world interactions are going to be like unless you actually do a test deployment. Same with the scooters, electric scooters, those rental scooters, all over the place, right? Taking advantage of kind of the loopholes and the places where regulation has not factored in, and then everything kind of balances out in the end. All right, let's move on to some quick VR talk before the Facebook Connect news. We had two headsets, non-Facebook related, I want to talk about. One's the Vario that I reviewed, the Vario Aero. You
Yeah.
can watch that review on YouTube right now. I haven't really talked to you about this, Jeremy, but
Do I want
you
it?
and I, yeah, you want it. Yeah. Well, okay. It's tethered, so you might not want it because I know you are
Yeah.
so on the untethered bandwagon, and not bandwagon. Like you're a believer, right, in the benefits of untethered VR.
I'm lazy. I don't want to take the time to get into VR. I want to put the headset on and be in VR. That's me. So I don't want to boot up a PC and I don't want to deal with the cable. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
You've tasted the benefits of low friction VR,
Yes.
and that can coexist, I think, right, with tethered VR for people who have a Steam VR setup. This is Steam VR based tracking. It's still over a USB cable to a high end graphics card. Vario had those combination display lenses, a focus panel at high pixel per degree. This is not that combination, so this is just a 2880 by 2720 per eye, and that resolution at 35 pixels per degree with, standard eye distance, 115-degree horizontal field of view. Half-Life Alyx has never looked better. I
Okay.
know I say like every new headset, like Reverb G2,
Yeah.
Half-Life Alyx is great there. Like
Is it
I
noticeably sharper than the G2?
it is noticeably sharper and the field of view is much better than the G2.
What about the sweet spot? Does it feel
Oh
like
yeah.
pretty
So it
good?
doesn't use Fresnel lenses. It uses
Oh.
the aspherical lenses, and so clarity is really really nice.
Oh.
There's distortion on the edges, chromatic aberration,
Yeah.
and some
Physics.
physics. So you get like lines that kind of bow and bend, but because they're using the same optics that they had designed for the combination panels,
Yeah.
but where the center they needed to really maximize the benefits of that OLED screen, by removing the OLED screen, there's now maximizing the benefits of these mini LED panels. And literally spent half an hour just looking at the Russell gloves in
I
this
believe
headset.
it. No, I've been there. Yeah. So,
And it's so much better than the Index, so
what's
much
the
better. Yeah.
comfort level, sound quality?
No speakers, no
No
headphones.
speakers at all. You need to bring your own headphones?
Bring your own headphones. No
Really?
microphone, even. Oh, with the version I had, the version I think they're shipping will have a mic attachment. So it's aux jack. I'm really disappointed there's an aux jack. Comfort was really nice though. So 700 grams. The ergonomics of the head strap really comfortable. Fit my glasses really well. Also, auto adjusting IPD with eye tracking.
That's nuts. Whoa, wait, eye tracking.
Yeah, 200 hertz eye tracking because they needed foveated rendering in their SDK for this. They're saying with their lenses, you technically need to maximize the clarity of their lenses and their panel, you should render at 8,000 by 8,000 per eye. Super sample.
Do any do any of the VR multiplayer social experiences support eye tracking, such as VR chat, Rec Room, anything like that?
Not as input. Yeah. And even in the fovea rendering, it's only via their SDK. That's kind of not standardized, normalized right now. They have to use their compositor, so like motion smoothing and all the reprojection stuff happens on their software stack versus the Steam VR one, because they're very cognizant that GPUs, you have to have even a 3090 can't render this at
Yeah.
90 hertz in some games like flight simulators.
Oh yeah.
You're still struggling. But a game like that's optimized like Half-Life Alyx, Pavlov, oh my god, like
Hmm.
it just I think we're beyond. You know how we used to talk about screen door effect being
Yeah.
a metric, right? Do you see the screen door effect?
Right.
And with Quest 2, with Reverb, we stopped talking about screen door effect. That became less of a factor.
Hmm.
But we still see aliasing. And as even though there's the space between the pixels is small enough where we don't see grid lines, you see either dithering when it's not rendering at native resolution or not super sampled, or you see like the jaggies. Jaggies are there, right? Even though you're not seeing the actual screen door.
You see the symptoms of a low resolution.
Sure, right.
Well,
Not reaching the retina of like an
given
iPhone.
how much, yeah.
This feels like it's reached at least the retina moment, the iPhone 4 moment for VR.
Really, I felt like the G2 was the first time I looked at it through a VR headset and felt like I could now see this is what it would be like I could use a computer in this headset.
Right. Yeah. And this speaks to how our brains are so, I don't know what's the exact word, but how like we think we've reached a point, a sweet spot, or like a milestone, but things can always be better.
Yeah.
And we always like underestimate our eyes and our brain's ability to discern more detail. And a headset like this just tells me life can be even better
Yeah.
than in the G2. And this is not even their the focus panel. Like you and I saw that 70 ppd focus panel, so we know that even in the Vario's headsets hardware, life could even be better.
Well, but their peripheral panel wasn't as high res as the one you're
Yeah.
talking about here
Yeah.
either. So this is in ways a middle ground.
Yeah, and this one has the peripheral panel of their latest generation, the one
Mm.
that we didn't see at Augmented World
I see.
Expo. So it's a very high resolution. The peripheral panel, or the background panel, is their main panel for this.
$1,000?
$2,000.
$2,000. Wow, I thought the index was bad. All right.
$2,000. No controllers, no trackers, no headphones. Very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for the people who've already put $2,000 on a graphics card, $5,000 in a big motion simulator setup or whatever, and can afford it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's people have been asking for it. Vardo's the only one putting out a headset at this resolution. It's quality so far, so they feel like they can charge that. Pimax, not to be left out, they announced a 12K headset next year. Tobii eye tracking, really wide vertical and horizontal field of view. It just seems like so many specs on paper. I haven't had great experience with Pimax headsets in the past. It feels like they found panel suppliers and they found ways to cram it all into one headset. I just don't know if the software that they can put will render everything nicely and comfortably. So I'm curious about it, but all this feels like we're waiting for the graphics to also catch up to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'd be curious to compare field of view of the Vario headset.
Yeah,
Which you seem to think is pretty good to the Pimax. I mean, the Pimax, that's where they've always made good ground, is with their field of view.
Yeah, and there's that, like, everyone wants 180 degrees, 200 degrees, whatever. Yeah. I do feel like that 90 to 100 degree is something we need to move past in mainstream consumer headsets, whether it's from Valve or Oculus. They need to get to 110, 115 at some point. There are a lot of trade-offs with those if they're going to use, Fresnel lenses or spherical lenses. Okay. One last thing before we get to Connect. Hasbro announced a new Ghostbusters HasLab product, the Proton Pack. So if you want a high quality, lights up, super detailed, cyclotron interior Proton Pack, you got to back it via HasLab. It's on HasbroPulse.com. It's really $400 to get in on this. They need 7,000 people to back it for it to be a real thing. And as of right now, 4,100 people a day into it. There's over a month and a half left, so I feel comfortable of it reaching that. But if I base on this quality of the Neutrona wand they put out last year for Ghostbusters, they're making really, really great Ghostbusters products. So check that out if you're interested. They also have a Rancor, with a huge posable Rancor in the Star Wars HasLab series. So another thing to check out.
Real quick,
okay.
Also, new Raspberry Pi was announced today. Raspberry Pi 02W, in that order. So the Raspberry Pi Zero is the mini one, and up until now it's been really low powered but small. Now it's as powerful as a Raspberry Pi 3, and it's only $15. Has Wi-Fi built onto it, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. So it's super cool for, like, I would say, handheld emulator mods or kits, or anything where you need to fit a big Raspberry Pi into a small amount of space. Looks cool.
$15. How do they get these so cheap? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, their mission. They're not about, like, making $1 billion. They're about getting computers in everybody's hands.
And they iterate so fast. So, I mean, it's great. Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we continue, I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from itpro.tv. Start or grow your IT career with online IT training from itpro.tv. Did the recent ransomware attack on the gas pipeline catch your attention? It's another example of how cybersecurity professionals are in demand. There are more than 500,000 open cybersecurity roles, and you can become a CyberSec Pro with online training. It's never too late to start a career in IT or move up the ladder, and ITPro.tv has you covered. From CompTIA and Cisco to EC Council and Microsoft, ITPro.tv has nearly 6,000 hours of on-demand training and engaging hosts who present information in a talk show format. They're live every day, and shows go studio to web in 24 hours. Courses are conveniently listed by category, certification, and job role, and stream ITPro.tv courses live and on demand worldwide via Roku, Apple TV, PC, or their iOS and Android apps. Learn IT, pass your certs, and get a great job with itpro.tv. Visit itpro.tv/test to save 30% off all plans. That's itpro.tv/test. Once again, itpro.tv/test. Now back to the show. Okay. Facebook Connect, RIP Oculus. I guess we'll start.
Do people know that? Yeah, that's it. I mean, not just from Connect. It hasn't been Oculus Connect for years. The brand is gone.
It's going away next year. It will be the Meta Quest, the Meta app on your phone. I mean, it hasn't been Oculus for a long time as we know it, as we knew it from the Kickstarter and the independent days, the Rift 1 days, and they spent $1 billion or a lot of money getting the goodwill and the momentum of the community, and I think they've achieved a lot of what they accomplished to do, making VR a mainstream thing that people at school know about, kids know about in the very way they know about AirPods and iPhones, and they covet it in the same way to play games like Beat Saber.
100%.
The fact that Beat Saber has, which they own, right? They own Beat Saber, they own developers Onward, they owned Ready at Dawn, and the Population 1 as well. But Beat Saber has sold $100 million worth of software on Quest alone. Shows that people are spending money in VR, right? Developers can make money. And Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, $50 million sold across all its platforms. They announced earlier this week, which is huge, right? For a VR game. Like that's great. And Half-Life Alyx, of course, right? Based on how many people bought that for $60 on Steam. Where do you want to go with the announcements? You want to talk about what wasn't announced, maybe? Based on leaks and things that had come out earlier in the week?
Well, yeah, we haven't talked about the leaks at all, I don't think, right? So let's set that up. Earlier this week, people found they found them on the website. They found on the Oculus website, buried in the code on the HTML, they found links to videos that were in the style of Oculus's how to use instructional videos, very cartoonish caricatures of people using their products and demonstrating how to do 4 different things. There were 4 different videos, and there was somebody picking up a clearly a new headset off of some sort of charging station that didn't have rings around the touch controllers and had a different design to the headset itself, and put it on and then proceeded to do something in augmented reality with it. And another one, they looked into a mirror and then they changed their avatar's costumes and then spun around and moved their body, and the avatar responded in a way that suggested there was some sort of body tracking. And so people got very excited about this, naturally, because this is none of the press had any inkling that there was new hardware to be announced at this year's Connect. And so we waited and waited. The next day, some textures were discovered inside. I think it was an SDK. It was an Oculus piece of Oculus software. Some textures for what was clearly the device in the cartoon were discovered, where they were unmapped. You could tell they were just flattened textures that would be mapped around a 3D model. And that was exciting. It was a different color. It was like a white silverish one versus the black one in the cartoon. People, there's 2 different SKUs. What does this mean? This is fantastic. I can't wait. Connect is
Quest
very
3,
exciting.
Quest Pro.
Yeah. And then, nothing. Nothing. Like, so we come to Connect here, and there were hints of new hardware, but this product, whatever this is, which is clearly far enough along that they're producing, cartoons that show you how to use it, very strange, very strange. It almost makes me feel like, are they is there something yet to come at Connect this year?
No, 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 no. I, I think this is hopeful, wishful thinking. I think if you listen to what Boz and and John Carmack and what people had talked about all through earlier this year, they had not hid the fact that they were working on a pro headset, but everything they talked about for 2021 was about software. This would be about the year of software. And Quest 2 itself was a surprise last year, 1 year ago. The question would they be on an annual hardware? Hardware's hard, Jeremy. Like as many prototypes as they've made, I would be I even though as much as I wanted it, I would have been shocked if they had done. I don't think they've done what they're done with Quest 2, frankly.
I'm not
Like
talking about the logistics. You're right. Hardware is hard, but I'm saying they have cartoons showing us how to use it and textures for some sort of model that are already embedded into software. Very strange.
I think they want to get there's still much more room for them to get Quest 2 to where it is, where they want it to be
Yeah.
with the software improvements, with the developer community. To fragment it more would be a disservice to the platform and to developers, which is like the most, it's like Occam's razor. It's like the most logical answer to it. To the wishful, despite the wishful thinking and these leaks, but they did show teases. So the tease of hardware coming next year,
Yep.
so 2-year hardware cycle, which I think is more practical and reasonable, is what they call Project Cambria. They actually announced two prototypes. One, Project Cambria, which is kind of like the Quest Pro equivalent of what we all hoped. Black headset, looks like compute is more backloaded than front loaded. Has a big forehead pad,
It's the
very much
headset in
like
the cartoon.
it is absolutely the headset in the cartoon. The details, though, that was not communicated in the cartoon, the animation that they talked about was RGB pass through, eye tracking, right? Not only eye tracking, but eye tracking for avatar input. So your avatar's eyes move, not just using AI and predictive. They're going to combine that with real, where your eyes are actually looking.
And not just
Face
eye
tracking,
tracking, but yeah, expression tracking, face tracking.
which
That's exciting.
which again, I believe must be a combination of the predictive algorithms we're using now based on voice input to an actual some type of sensor, whether it's IR blasting your face or optical tracking aiming down. We couldn't see where the cameras are.
Yep.
Looks like it's still be inside out. They did say it's part of the Quest platform, so it's got to be same, architecture in terms of compatibility. Just like Quest 2 ran all the Quest 1 apps, and they'll just gate, applications at some point. This is going to be for Cambria only. RGB pass through is a big thing. And that leads into some of the mixed reality stuff, APIs they've been opening developers this year with Quest 2 with the black and white tracking, what they call the presence platform that they just announced. They did acknowledge high resolution screen and also more expensive.
Yeah.
And
They said, and a few times, they reiterated that this is going to be a more expensive device. It will not, it's a chance for them to experiment with technologies and get them into developers' hands before they manage to bring them down to the Quest 2 platform, aka price for
yeah,
consumers.
but they didn't call us a dev kit either. I
No.
think they said that developers are going to get this soon or have this now
Yeah.
or starting to build content for it.
I think more
But
people will buy this than they expect, honestly.
absolutely. And they also later talked about the all-in bet on mixed reality and that they're still going to subsidize hardware. Like they're not going to try to make money on this hardware either, as much as it would be a pro headset or whatever you want to call it. It will just cost more for them to make, therefore cost more for consumers to buy.
Yeah, pancake optics as well, so thinner optics.
Yeah.
And that again, back to this cartoon, like it is a thinner headset. I forgot to mention that than the Quest. It extrudes from your face a lot, considerably less. So
Well, also,
we don't know when that will be announced next year. They just said next year. They mentioned some sort of Oculus gaming event next year. So I don't know if we need to wait until Connect. I'm kind of knocking on wood here. Fingers crossed we don't have to wait until Christmas next year to see whatever this new device is, especially given the fact that they have these assets already ready. But yeah, we'd be curious to see or learn more about when this announcement will really come to light.
my suspicion is it will be very unlike the Quest 2 day and date. Hey, you can pre-order the day we announce it. The fact that they showed it and showed the actual hardware and talk about the features means that they can slow play teases, demos at events like GDC, E3, or whatever, at their Facebook event, right? The F8, right, event that they
Right.
have in the middle of the year before a holiday wide release is what I bet they'll do, and that goes in line with this not being necessarily a mainstream consumer device, but it's a higher end device. Nothing shown of those controllers though, of those no ring track controllers, which the rumor is that the controllers themselves would have cameras, some inside out tracking themselves. There's also an AR, a very, very brief AR mention of a headset they called Project, what was it?
Nazare.
Nazare. Now, I turned the captions on in the live stream and it didn't tell me how to spell Nazare, so
Yeah.
I don't know how it's exactly
Yeah.
spelled.
I'm stupidly Googling it 10 seconds after they've announced it to try to find the spelling. And like, of course, no.
There's like a country or like a territory somewhere in the Middle East, like Nazare, but I don't know how it's actually. We'll have to see what the press release says. But this is 5 millimeter thick AR glasses. I think this is what they're talking about with the Michael Abrash part of the presentation of you being paired with the neural input wristbands, the Black Widow wristbands at the company they acquired to do that input, as well as some actual world mapping. So what they called indexed tracking. So pre-baked in, you tell the system what's in your world. That's a desk, that's a refrigerator, that's my teapot that's tracked. And then this headset using eye tracking will know that you're glancing at your shelf, glancing at your refrigerator, and give you make those interactions more predictive. So
Reminded me very much of the little I know about Tesla's AI for world mapping. So they
mm,
feed their system in with, tens of thousands of videos that have been where objects in the videos have been keyed and identified by, people that they contract to go through this tens of thousands of hours of videos and key stuff so that the machine learning can learn what those things are and then apply that knowledge to videos that haven't been keyed. So I'm hoping, because that's what we saw. We saw a version of a room where a woman was walking through it, and everything in the room had been, was surrounded by a rectangle, and the glasses knew what everything was, and it had to do was tell which object the person was looking at, and then it could engage with that. So if you did like a click motion with your fingers, it would apply a click, whatever that meant, in the context of that thing to that thing. If it's a light, it would turn it on.
we see that in VR already. The kind of head track using the cursor, where it's a combination of your gaze, like you're pointing, you're highlighting an object with your head looking, and then pressing the A button on the touch controller, and it being different. Like Lone Echo is a great example of that menu where you can look at a character and it highlights, and then it brings up a context
Right.
sensitive menu where it kind of infers that you want to interact with that thing. Except this is using eye tracking, so it's a little more kind of subconscious even, or
Right.
quicker response, so and less strain on your neck as you're using just natural interactions. Prototypes hardware far away. The
Michael
other big thing,
Abrash said we need a dozen major tech advancements before we get near any of this stuff.
let's solve the physics problems first. None of this, my big fear is that none of this talked about the compute side of it, right? Like the big elephant in the room is, we know Apple is working on, we presume Apple's working on hardware, AR hardware, and with the reviews of what the M1 Max and the M1 Pro chips we talked about last week can do, their custom silicon, which has been a 10-year journey for them, where they slowly have built out on the, how like chips, the ARM chips, the packages, every piece of that package has slowly become first party, from the controllers, the audio, to all that stuff. That's all being done in house rather than just the compute side. Previously, it was Apple did the compute, but then they licensed the GPU and then they license a USB controller or whatever. Apple has now taken over all of that on the package design, where Facebook with Quest 2 is still licensing Qualcomm XR2. They're behind there, right? They may have the research and the optics and certainly have the money, but they're not that type of hardware company yet. So
Yeah.
this is where there might be a big difference in, and them relying on those partners still, and where the Apple competitive advantage will always be software and hardware unified, because it's all done first party.
Yeah, I wonder how much additional processing, or how they'll handle what additional processing is required for Project Cambria, because the XR2, it seems like they're maxing it out. In fact, they're using certain elements of it in ways that weren't even intended. I forget how they're doing that hand tracking, but I feel like that was beyond the scope of the chip, the
Yeah.
chip sort of spec. Um, so yeah, I wonder if there'll be a sub processor for some of this new stuff, or if who knows.
Yeah, and undoubtedly, the hardware designers at Facebook are talking to Qualcomm and saying these are our needs, these are our power requirements, this is our I/O that we need. We need the headroom here, here, and here for voice input, for eye tracking, for
Yeah,
all that, because we're doing CV based, computer based SLAM, CV based SLAM, not lidar based SLAM. Um, so they're working, but it's very different because they still have to wait on
yeah.
another company and rely on their fabs as well and their roadmaps.
So you had anticipated that there would be a lot of software announcements, and there really weren't. Like there were a handful of game announcements, and let's just say the big one in my mind is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
That's it. Oh my
Finally, I
god.
mean that's native to Quest 2. That's gonna be great. I think that's assuming they pull it off in a way that doesn't, you know, result in motion sickness, which
Or
is
hot coffee.
which, which is entirely possible. Given their experience with Resident Evil 4, which has been proven to be a tremendous success for the company, over 2,000 reviews on the store so far. Only hadn't even been out for a week, I don't think. And GTA San Andreas, right on the heels of the remaster. So hopefully they're using some of the remastered assets.
Oh.
Who knows? But this is gonna be great, and they have had the first person mode in that game for a long time now, so they've had some experience in what works and what doesn't from that perspective. Literally, I can't wait. I don't expect we'll get this anytime this year. I think we'll probably have to wait till next year, given that they didn't announce a date. But that's huge. That actually, for me, is the most exciting announcement of Connect this year.
Yeah, and the question is who's doing the port?
Right.
Is it Rockstar or is it for Resident Evil's Armature? Right,
Yeah.
Armature did they're one of the Quest developers. They did the sports tennis game for Quest, and I think they're based out of Austin. But if they have the same same development team or the same producers who are going to hold the development team to the standard of quality,
Yeah.
Resident Evil shows that they can do something that checks all the boxes and surprises you in a way. And GTA open world. This is like the first kind of real open world VR game native to Quest. That's gonna be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big announcement. Yep.
Knock on wood, it has the same feeling of being a VR first title that Resident Evil 4 does. So
Yeah.
great, can't wait. I think people have been hoping for this title, and it's exactly what people wanted.
There's also Blade and Sorcery, very popular in PC VR. Right, that's one of those just Gorn like, but like physics based simulators almost. Right, hugely popular in the community.
Yeah,
It's going to get a Quest native release soon, next month or so. I think they said.
called Blade and Sorcery Nomad.
Right, and so probably won't support all the mods that you can have in the desktop version. Your lightsaber mods, your all your Star Wars mods and decapitation mods or whatever. But it's going to offer similar gameplay experience. We hope. Vertical Games, who did Arizona Sunshine, and they still have that game after the fall coming out. We talked about Lone Echo 2 being the end of PC based VR game. And after the fall is another big Oculus Studios. That's their big zombie shooter game, multiplayer zombie shooter that's still to come out. But after that, there's been 5 other Vertigo Games titles that are being produced with Oculus Studios. And that was it for the gaming news, right?
Yeah,
I think yeah.
they except for surfing with Mark Zuckerberg, but that's years away.
Leveling up in Beat Saber. There you go. That was the didn't know, not exactly sure what that meant.
Yeah, that was weird. That was like they showed off some sort of hilt. It was like a new saber. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the software side, on the development side, the Presence platform. Okay, apps. The other app thing was web apps are now a bigger thing. So
In
via
VR.
App Lab in
Yeah.
VR. So there's multitasking, quote unquote, in the Quest headset now with the kind of home windows. You can have a web browser plus your fitness tracker or whatever. But the number of windowed apps kind of remind me of the old first iPhone web apps, right? Your limited Apple ones and some web app ones. Now we're going to allow more developers to do these web XR apps.
That's funny
which are
because
basically websites.
I hated that in the Apple days. I wanted native apps, but in this case, I actually think it makes a lot of sense. I don't like opening a web browser and going to a website in VR. It's a pain in the butt because I'm not going to use my keyboard. So this makes sense to have basically quick launching apps that are basically websites in a package. Makes a lot of sense. They had. Do you remember some of the examples they had on screen? I think that. Um,
It was not. I mean, it was media applications
I want to say like
initially.
Monday.com was in there. I
Yeah,
imagine.
Pluto TV,
I'm hoping Slack is in there. Like some useful stuff.
a smart sheet, Instagram, Dropbox, Slack is in there.
Oh, good.
So a lot of your standard utilities, but front ends, web, VR, still flat screen front ends,
Yeah.
but now windowed and interaction. You can use touch and pointers and all the maybe even hand gestures for interaction. And they'll be App Lab compatible, so people can set them and you can have links to download them. And it's again more multitasking that they're hoping for. Um,
They announced that
the
homes would be multiplayer in the near future. In fact, they're rolling out the Horizon brand across a lot. So
Yeah.
they're applying it now to home, which is your environment you have when you put on your Oculus Quest. There's 9 or so that you can choose from right now. They're adding another one that's more of an office space, so that when you do collaborations with people in your home, maybe you can even get some work done.
One of the things they emphasize is the idea of continuity, the idea that you want the VR experience to feel like one continuous experience where you press the power button on the headset, you're in the same virtual space as opposed to loading. Oh gosh, remember the old days where even the library in the Rift was a separate loading to load the library. So Windows to media
Yeah,
to social would all be one continuous experience, which they
yeah,
have dipped their toes in right now with
yeah.
the party chat, but they want
Right.
avatars in there. So your avatars, I'll be able to see you, kind of like the all the things we talked about with Ready Player One when we kind
I'm
of
all for it.
grafted our expectations.
We played Demio with Kishore on Sunday, and it's unpleasant. I jump in there, I can't hear you guys because you're in a party chat. You guys deduce what's going on. Quit the game, leave the party chat, join back in. Oh, I hear you now. If we could just come to one of our homes
Yeah.
and then launch into a game together, it makes much more sense.
God. And I remember we started guessing what would it be like if I went into your home and you were in a VR game. Would it look like you're sitting in a chair and like we see a projection of what you saw floating in front of your face, and I
I
could
love
tap that
this.
and then jump in? Like this is
Yeah,
the Ready Player One visualization that
and
they're kind of bringing in.
and why not reflect all of the motions I'm doing in my VR game to you,
Right,
but you
right.
see me in my VR, jacked in chair. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I see that, and I pull the plug from behind your head and plug it behind my head, and now we're in the Matrix together.
Yep.
We're on the Matrix all along. The SDK stuff. So they're also allowing developers who had previously able to do the mixed reality, the pass-through stuff. We saw these experiments where people had track pass-through piano keys, like Guitar Hero. There was
I
a
thought that
physical
was
piano.
cool. That's cool. I thought the pass-through piano was really brilliant. It's just like, could you really get that to work? Could you get that to line up with your piano? And I mean, I suppose it's possible. Like, you have the keys, you could use those as markers. You could figure that out. But there are pianos that are, correct size keys and pianos with smaller keys. So I just wonder.
Well, we'll know next month because devs can start shipping these pass-through mixed reality Quest 2 apps in App Lab and even the App Store starting next month, with the caveat that it's going to be grayscale using the existing cameras. They're doing their own app, a demo app, The World Beyond, with a virtual character, so Peter Molyneux style, right? You can have a virtual buddy that you can have running around your space. But all of this presence platform also has a new SDK for tracking objects in your space. So indexing, as they call it, this is a table, this is my chair, and locking the holograms to a space, whether it's a panel or a
Great.
control panel or a screen, kind of the things that we need for mixed reality to work. Things that we thought were, that were only in HoloLens and other AR glasses. It's making their way into a headset that a lot of people have right now. And then voice input as a part of SDK.
As well as better hand manipulations, like being able to, throw things between hands or engage with things easier.
Right. Again, all machine learning benefits because the cameras are the same, right? But it's all about training and all the input that they've put into their ML.
We got to talk about all of just at least briefly, all of the futuristic, this is what the virtual reality and augmented reality will be like simulations we got for this broadcast, because that was
metaverse.
That was most of it. Like, honestly, I I thought, okay, we're gonna get 5 minutes of this is our dream, and then we're gonna get a bunch of real products. And it wasn't. It was like a lot of that, and then we got little peppered doses of reality throughout the hour and 20-minute long broadcast. But it was a lot of Facebook's version of Ready Player One. And I'm not sure who this was for, because all of the diehards like us, we know what we share the dream, and we also know what the current technology is capable of, and we kind of have some suspicions about what the next generation might be capable of. We just want to know what's that. When are we gonna get it? What are we getting next? So it wasn't for us. Um, the If you're making this for people who haven't bought into VR yet, you're selling them something that is on the verge of irresponsible, because there's nothing about what we saw today that is remotely possible given current technology. You're not going to be at a concert and look to your right and see your friend as a hologram when you're not even wearing glasses, and there's no occlusion. There's not their full body is there, and they're watching the concert with you, and then Ready Player One style after party tickets. Yeah, and you reach out and like,
Jean
no.
Baptiste likes that. Or was it a pre-recorded hologram? Better buy that NFT right now.
And I don't mean to be too snarky, because I do think this kind of video has tremendous value to developers and people who are, develop and thinking about the future, to sort of be, a piece of work that provides that inspiration, that gives technicians and technology people and engineers something to work towards. And and as well as designers, like, this is a great idea, and it could be a video that is even a longer movie that people get to watch whenever they want to. It just, in my mind, it shouldn't be a keynote. A keynote is a place to talk about what's coming next. What's reality right now? Not just a providing this cartoonified movie of what we hope to be able to do one day, once we can develop the technology to do so.
And for people who are tech reporters, we've seen these type of futuristic videos from Microsoft, the kind of Microsoft research videos where and we know from a physics standpoint, the things they're talking about are very, very difficult, and some of it may never happen just because of how development works. Uh, but everything they showed should have there's something that's grounded in the path has been laid to get to that point. So if they're going to show up virtual concerts with friends, an after party with friends, even though it may never be like the hologram they showed in this visualization, it's telling developers you can make money making merchandise to sell at VR concerts in the future. It's telling people who are watching, 180 VR video right now, the VR concerts will not just be 180 VR video; they'll be rendered spaces. It's laying down the paths for where they think the content is going to be. And I think so much of it is for the developers to say, stick with our version of the platform because there's money to be made here.
There was a
And we're
lot
gonna,
of money to be
yeah,
made here. Like, there
yeah,
was a lot of commerce. Um, they talked about Horizon Marketplace, like that's a thing, and Horizon now being everywhere. It's yeah, they're trying to seed places where anybody can make money, and by anybody I mean also Facebook or Meta, whoever is going to be making money on the metaverse through microtransactions everywhere.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's the stuff not only will be secure for the user, it'll be secure for the marketplace. So your transactions will make sure, they'll make sure that there will be no piracy in this space as well for developers and your fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think you're right that it was very much a vision keynote versus a announcement based keynote, and there are going to be discussion tracks and panels throughout. This is no longer a convention, right? Like when we used to go to Oculus Connect, it
Mhm.
was 2 days of group panels and networking and uh, uh, workshops and stuff like that. That was anchored by a keynote at the beginning that became the place for product announcements. And what Facebook Connect feels like now is just that keynote. Yes, there will be a John Carmack discussion, and yes, there will be these spin-off panels that people can watch web streams of. But it really feels like, as opposed to putting on this big thing, it's just here's a marketing video that we put together.
I would have preferred a marketing video, I think. I mean, Apple has really set the standard for how to do these kind of virtual conferences, and I felt like those weren't even that great. But at least they focus on products and what's next, and obviously they keep good secrets, and so they can reveal some things. This what struck me as a very strange event that I don't think they've ever done anything like this. Where they're talking about at least when you see Michael Abrash pontificate about the future and talk about where we're going to get one day, he lays out the technologies that are required to do so, and then he goes into the advancements that they're making at Facebook Reality Labs, and he shows you prototypes. And maybe maybe the keynote is not a place to get so low level and tech heavy, but I mean, I look at what they were showing off, and I just say, like, well, yeah, that's a movie. Like, that's Ready Player One. Like, we are so far from that. Why even like promise that to people? Because I don't know. It just strikes me as borderline irresponsible, given how I desperately don't want people's hopes about VR to be overzealous. I mean, there's still a lot of people who haven't even put a headset on yet. And I don't like the idea of people watching movies like this and expecting that when they go to play, Beat Saber.
I think you're right. I think the visualization oversells the experience, but the experience itself is so compelling that you can't show, and it's difficult to show, as we know. It's difficult to communicate the idea of presence. But the idea of presence alone is not something that is sexy for a marketing video. And so this is also getting their foot in the door before Apple announces anything. And say that, hey, we've been thinking about this all along, and they said all the buzzwords like interoperability and they're going to make stuff for the metaverse, not making the metaverse. And but it will be through their lens, from figuratively and literally. And I think it's a lot for developers. In many ways, it does feel like a developer conference, getting people on board. All these funds, $150 million here, $50 million there. I wish it was more content focused, and I think the difference between this and an Apple keynote is that they don't have products to announce. Apple has so many, every keynote, it's like they can't show enough products in Apple keynote. They have to scale it back because there's too much to announce. Here's a keynote just for the iPhone, or here's a presentation just for the MacBooks, and then you also got AirPods and all this other stuff. And Facebook as a company, their product has been primarily the apps, which you don't have big announcements to app releases, app updates. That just passively happens. And hardware wise, it's again, hardware is hard.
In that case, I would have been happy with a games announcement, run. I would give me 10 games that are coming out over the course of the next year, and talk about them each for 5 minutes, make it a 45-minute event. Like, that would have been my preference. I like to get excited about what's on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, Horizon Home. Well, I'm excited to check that out.
GTA.
Yeah, GTA. Absolutely. GTA. Spend money in GTA. All right. Well, I think they'll probably, we'll probably talk next week about the Carmack talk and the insights that come out of that. We're literally recording this an hour after the opening keynote, so get this podcast out. That does it for a packed week. Hope you all there are safe. Hope you all have a wonderful Halloween. And if you have difficult kids, let me know how you deal with your difficult kids for Halloween. I just need some empathy there, Jeremy. I just need to know I'm doing okay as a parent.
I'm sure you're doing fine. I've met your son, and you've got your hands full. He's bound to be an immensely powerful, intelligent child and young adult, and for now, you've just got your hands full.
He's beginning the no phase, as we enter the meta phase. Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for podcasting this week. Thank you all there for listening. We'll be back next week. I'll play an intro. We have a new one from Great Job, I believe, but we'll hear that. I'll just play it in the edit, so it'll be a surprise for both you and me. All right, see you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hi there. I didn't see you.
Tested. You guys both have children. You guys both have boys.
Yes.
It's messy.
You know what?
Why didn't someone tell me how messy it would be?
Yeah.
You're a boy. You kind of know what's
I
happening.
don't remember that part of my life. I don't remember how explosive it could be.